The 2026 midterms are not even remotely around the corner, but the Republicans have just lost another Senate seat, bringing their total losses to 3, and the bloodletting is not going to stop there. I'm going to play video of the latest Senate seat that's been lost, but the thing to keep in mind here is that so far, 2 out of these 3 seats are being lost directly because of Trump, and that's the good news. The other thing to keep in mind is that the electoral math overwhelmingly favors the Republicans to maintain Senate control in 2026. That is, until Trump got elected. Before Trump was elected, 33 Senate seats were coming up for re-election, but Trump emptied 2 other Republican seats by adding J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio to his team. So now, 35 Senate seats are up for re-election, and Republicans hold 22 of them. Democrats only hold 13 of those seats, and one of them is coming open from retirement, making it an open race. That's bad news for Democrats. Only the good news for Democrats is that Trump is president. Yeah, I know, that's not good news for anyone, but Trump is killing Republican chances for re-election. Democrats aren't the only ones facing retirement. Yertle the Turtle, the Confederacy-loving corporate kiss-ass Mitch McConnell, singularly responsible for Trump's re-election, is retiring from the Senate before his old friend, the Grim Reaper, comes a-knockin'. At any other moment in time, that would have no impact, but an open seat in Kentucky during Trump 2.0 is going to be close. McConnell is the only Republican retiring before he strokes out on the Senate floor, but he's not the only one retiring. Tom Tillis of North Carolina is also not seeking re-election, and that's directly due to Trump. Tillis was already facing bad numbers in North Carolina, but the big, beautiful, billionaire butt-kissing bill sealed his fate, and he knew it. Rural North Carolina is screwed under this law, and it's not like the more urban centers are going to benefit. Tillis voted against the bill and then announced his retirement. The Cook Political Report's Amy Taylor calls this a top pickup opportunity for Democrats in this 2026 election cycle. And then there's the third seat that Republicans are going to lose, either through retirement or through electoral defeat. Remember this politically astute analysis?
People are not, well, we all are going to die. So, for heaven's sakes.
Now, at the time, everyone thought that Iowa Republican Senator Joni Ernst was responding to audience comments, but today, it's becoming clearer that she was prophesizing about her political career. Like every other Republican foolish enough to do town halls after Elon Musk's Doge cuts and during the build-up to the big bill, Ernst got heat from her constituents. And, like every other Republican, she tried feeding them talking points, but it blew up in her face. That's when she uttered her famous line. Then, in the most political tone-deaf response of the last decade, she tried doubling down on it with an embarrassing video soon after, where she mocked her constituents again.
And I'm really, really glad that I did not have to bring up the subject of the tooth fairy as well.
This famous episode has put her behind in the polls with little to no chance to gain ground on Democratic challenger Nathan Sage, a Marine and Army veteran, mechanic, and executive director of a local chamber of commerce. Sage is the real deal, and Iowa knows that Joni Ernst is not. And now there's speculation that she's not even going to try. Watch this.
Yeah, look, I mean, she has sort of gone through some of the motions, suggesting that she could run again. She just hired a campaign manager. She's raised about $1 million for her potential re-election effort, which is not super impressive, but it's also not nothing. But behind the scenes, I'm hearing from Senate Republicans that they just don't see the fight in her anymore. And she has told people recently that she hasn't even decided whether she wants to run again. And the reason for that, well, there's a few, actually. Number one is that she previously was in leadership. Tom Cotton, who is actually a close friend of hers, ran against her and totally ousted her from that position. I'm told that she actually felt rather betrayed, and that was a huge sore point for her for a while. And then remember back in January, she totally got dragged by MAGA influencers online when she was sort of holding out her support for Pete Hegseth. Obviously had a lot of concerns about him. Ultimately, she voted for him, but that was after this really really ugly campaign where she was basically made an example of by the White House and White House allies. They even suggested that she wanted the job herself, which I was told at the time was totally false, a smear campaign against her. And that has sort of stuck with her. I mean, even her Senate Republican colleagues saw that and were like, wow, okay, we don't want that to happen to us. We're going to get in line. And so between both of those things, you know, it hasn't been exactly a great year for her. She had this quote just a few months ago where she, you know, in that town hall, you guys talked about it on your show, where she said, you know, everybody's going to die, when a constituent suggested that these Medicaid cuts they just passed would actually kill people. And that was obviously very tone deaf.
So on top of everything else, Ernst is being treated like crap by her own Republican Party. It's hard to fathom that Republicans would treat a woman unfairly, but in Ernst's case, they stomped on her a couple of times. And being betrayed by Tom Cotton, one of the most lackluster, boot-licking hayseeds in Congress, that has to be embarrassing. But the point is this: thanks to Trump, this seat is an uphill climb for Ernst, even if she stays in the race. And frankly, it's almost unwinnable for her given the numbers. That makes 3 Senate seats that are no longer in the Republican re-election column, and you can count 2 of those as going to the Democrats. Add to that the absolute vulnerability of Susan Collins and the surprising poll out of Texas that shows Jasmine Crockett leading the polls, despite the fact that she has not even remotely announced that she's running. And it all points to the same thing. Trump is dragging down the Republican Party. And if Democrats would spend less time trying to defeat Zohran Mamdani and focus on beating Republicans, they can absolutely take control of both houses. So would I bet on the Democrats taking both houses? Absolutely. But I'm also betting that Trump declares martial law and cancels elections. So, you know, good news, bad news there. Time to start planning our organized response to that plan. I'm Anthony Vincent Gallo for Occupy Democrats.